All right, unfortunately, I got a phone call and it interrupted the last video, but in the previous video, I filled the cartridge, and now we're going to prepare the site and go through the rest, other than actually the insertion, since, like I said, I'm going to be putting it in the top of my buttocks, and some folks may not want to see it. I mean, it's right below my waist, but I'm not going to want everyone to be able to see this, and some people, have issues. Anyway, I removed the plastic. Then next, I usually remove this paper. And then I remove this cover very, very carefully. I treat everything, and you should treat everything as though it was your eyeball and be very delicate. First thing I do is make sure that the sight is seated down in here. And then you have to unclip the little hose from the holder here. Never really paid attention to how I do it, but I guess push it down and then very slowly unwind it out. And I try to do everything kind of not horizontally, but I try to always make sure that I'm low so that I'm not pulling up. You don't want to pull up in any case, because that's the whole thing, is sometimes this thing gets pulled up, and that's what causes the bent cannulas. So I've unwound it, and I rested it in the groove here. I'm still nice and seated. And now I'm going to connect it to my pump. That way, when we're ready to prime it, we can prime it. I think everyone knows, just tighten this nice and snug. But the most important things that we want to talk about are right here in this area. So I've noticed a correlation. If I have a hard time pulling off this little blue shield here, I usually call it the sheath. If I have a hard time getting that off, I know that the lubricant between the needle that is used to insert it and the cannula is also going to be difficult. And so that's one of those things that without some of these precautions may cause you to have a bent cannula. Anyway, so as far as removing this, personally, I go and I remove it now and I leave the paper on. That way I can push it back down should I somehow pull the sight up off of the needle and off of the inserter. So I always twist it. I don't pull it up. I take my fingers and I'm twisting it and getting it loose. This one shouldn't be much problem. I feel it spun loose very quickly and easily. And so now above the needle, I'm going to still twist and pull it off. And we've got it off. Some of the guys that have contributed to this video always tell you to look and make sure that you can kind of see the cannula is below the tip of the needle. As long as the cannula is below the tip of the needle, structurally speaking, and I'm a mechanical engineer, but structurally speaking, you could shoot this thing into a rock and you're not going to get a bent cannula. So sticking it into hardened tissue should not be an issue. If it's an issue, the inserter won't go all the way down to your skin, but you could hit bone shooting it into your kneecap and you shouldn't get a bent cannula. And what people call a bent cannula, if you looked at it under a microscope, you would see that the needle has shot through the side of the tube. I'm going to try here to show. It's one of my tools that I've used to kind of help see what's going on here. But this is an eye loop for a machinist. And you can kind of see, hopefully, if things aren't focused, that the needle sticks up beyond the cannula by like 1/8 of an inch or something. Okay, anyway, so the needle is exposed. At this point, I could start the priming process, but I'm going to leave that for last so I can talk through this without getting distracted. Use my finger here and just kick this up a little. And then when I peel the paper off, I was just checking to make sure I'm recording. I got scared that I wasn't recording, but I peel it kind of horizontally like this. I'll pull it off to the side, and I always stay kind of low as I'm peeling it, and I peel around. This way there's no chance of pulling the sight up off of the inserter. And if you look closely, I haven't pulled it up, and I couldn't. I mean, if you pulled the paper up, you might pull the patch and the sight up off of the inserter, and that's what causes bent cannulas. Okay, at this point, I'm going to make sure that this isn't in the groove, so that when I pull and load this thing, the spring, so that there's no way that this hose is going to pull it up off of there. And I've locked it in place. Now it's locked in place. You can see my hose was still dangling here. And now I'm going to gently put the hose into the groove so that when I go to shoot it in, everything is happy. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and prime it since this time I waited. And, you know, it's going to take 10 units. But I'm going to talk about something else real fast while this is happening. So at this point, we're all going to go and we're going to insert the sight. And God help me if I only brought one. I'm actually away from home visiting my folks. Anyway, so the next thing that I want to show now, I want you to pretend that this one here that is priming is this one, and I'm going to show you what I do to further make sure that I don't get a bent cannula. And I'm going to pretend that I'm, pardon the flesh, that I'm inserting it on my stomach. But let's say you've gone ahead and you're ready to insert it. First thing first, I take my IV prep, and 1 second, I should be seeing a bubble here. I'm at 10.5 units. Right. Yep, I see insulin, so stop. Okay, so anyway, back to this. So now this thing is primed, and I'm ready to shoot it in. It's important at this point, and again, let's pretend. So I'm using another one because I don't want to put this in my stomach. But it's very important to put it flat against your body. I don't have any experience, and some others can speak to if you're putting it on your arm or someplace where you might want to elevate the skin. Elevating the skin, kind of like I used to do with shots, I don't think can work very well with this kind of insertion device, but maybe some people have perfected a method. I mean, and essentially what would be important if you were pinching some skin, let me try to turn sideways, what would be important if you were pinching is to make sure that it's flat against the skin. In engineering terms, you want the needle to be normal to the surface. Anyway, important thing, you can see here I've cut out an old insurance card. And let me get my current sight off. I'm going to step off camera for a second and pull my current sight off of my body so I can show you. All right. So I cut this card, as you see here, because initially I was kind of putting it around the sight when I went to pull off the inserter. Now I've learned that I can just take this end and hold down. When you see me talk about holding the patch down, right now I only really hold down that much, and it seems to be enough. But so what I do is and I need you to pretend for a minute, well, actually I'm going to use this one since the needle is retracted. But this is here, and it's on my body. And now if you pretend that it was deployed, you would then sneak the card in between, like you pull it off just enough to get the card, and get the card so that you're holding down the patch. So you can see here, I pull it up a little bit, sneak the card in there, and what you would be doing is holding down, so we'll pretend that this is This is there. I basically hold down about that much of the patch and then pull the inserter off, kind of watching that I'm not pulling the sight up. Because what happens, and I'll make a third video showing you what actually is happening when you bend a cannula. So anyway, I'm going to insert my sight right now, and I will make a part 3 of the video.